You and I got some more clues on who might be the next manager for the White Sox, and the team made some history, just not the type you might have hoped for. Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, General Manager Chris Getz spoke before last night's game and said interim manager Grady Sizemore will be given consideration to have that title lifted. Another report came out later that there's another potential candidate that the team may go with, so let's discuss that first. Then, if you were coming to hear about the Sox making history last night, well, they did, just not the kind you were hoping for. And then it's Wednesday, so it's a way back segment. Let's discuss that amazing 2005 ALCS win over the Angels. And this episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. All right, so I like the job Grady Sizemore is doing, but I don't like the idea of hiring the backup option to be the team's next manager. GM Chris Getz is warming up to the idea and, of lifting the interim title from him. And that gives me concern that he will once again miss a big moment. At least, it is encouraging that Getz is willing to go through the interview process rather than just give Sizemore the job, kind of like how Chris got his promotion. So at least that's encouraging, but still, I just get this feeling that this is a huge moment for the Sox in their franchise history. They need to get they need to get this hire right. And I'll explain it in a second. And they cannot miss this moment. They cannot miss the moment like they missed in the Eric Fetty deal or by not trading Garrett Crochet, even though I'm on board with not trading Garrett Crochet. You got to hit on this. And it sounds like, if you just lift the tag off of Grady Sizemore, you're just going with your backup plan. And I'll double down on this too and say being the team's next manager is not actually the right role for Sizemore long term. Being the front office snitch is. And I say that with all due respect because if it's executed correctly, it would be a better role for him. And what do I mean by snitch? I actually mean the liaison between the manager and the front office. A lot of teams have those types of guys. And as I think, he's well respected by Getz, and he at least has a few weeks of being in the big seat as the manager, he could be that good go-between to make sure the manager is getting what he needs from the front office in terms of information and data, and the manager is playing the lineup in the way that it was constructed to do, to be played, even though next year's lineup will be built with the equivalent of duct tape and chewing gum. Also, 670 in the scores, Bruce Levine reports that the Sox do have a preferred candidate, and he had an interesting quote that reveals the team could be pivoting away from their reported original first choice, Marlins manager Skip Schumacher, or it could be he's pivoting away from them. And however, Skip, think about that. He's been a fantasy, as the Sox are not going to win a bidding war. They never win bidding wars. So I wouldn't get my hopes up that Skip Schumacher is going to be the White Sox next manager, even though he's got ties to shadow GM Tony La Russa. Levine's reported target does come with red flags of his own, however, but at least this person does come from a winning organization that I want to get into in a few seconds. But first, let's get into what Getz said about Sizemore, and this is from Ryan Taylor's write-up in NBC Sports Chicago. By the way, I really hope Ryan ends up at the Chicago Sports Network or somewhere. He's a very talented writer. Got to know him via some Twitter messages, and NBC Sports Chicago we know is folding at the end of the month. So hopefully, he's one of those people that gets to land on his feet. Really good guy. All right, so here's what he writes. All right, and here's the quotes. Quote, Grady Sizemore is in consideration, Getz said. He has a lot of traits that we're looking for, but we're certainly wanting to go through a full process before we make any sort of decision. He's done a very good job from our evaluation, and we feel like he deserves to be in consideration. I can't say that he's got a leg up on anyone because it's going to be a deep process, and we're going to find someone that's the best fit for us, but he deserves to be in consideration. End quote. Getz rejected the idea of hiring from within the team's next manager back in August. When asked about potential frustration from within about the specific criteria, Getz doubled down, saying he aimed to be upfront and honest with his current subordinates about the new direction he wants to take for the position. However, Sizemore will earn consideration for the position, a telltale sign that the White Sox are appreciative of his work as interim manager after the organization dismissed Pedro Grifol as permanent manager. Quote, I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Grady and the staff. Grady's temperament is exactly what we needed. It's very clear early on he has remained that the players have such a high level of respect for him, and that's because of the character that he has, how he communicates to the players, and how he supports players. The players have responded well. Obviously, they haven't necessarily had the statistical results or anything that has shown up, maybe on the win-loss record, but the intent and the effort have been there, and that's a testament to both the players and Grady and the coaching staff, end quote, and that's from Chris Getz. And then Taylor wraps up with, one of the criteria Sizemore reportedly checks off is the clubhouse, is the players do love him. Managing the clubhouse well is a huge component of what the next manager should bring to the clubhouse. So again, really good write-up. I suggest checking that out on NBC Sports Chicago. Also, Vinny Duber of All CHGO, he's got a great write-up too. And I'm sure Scott Merkin and Daryl Van Schouwen and Lamont Pope also have some good stuff there. Just didn't get a chance to check out their stuff this morning, but as I was writing up the show. All right. Obviously, the job of a baseball manager has become part HR manager and part in-game manager. Because, what I want from the next manager is someone whose sole focus is on winning the game in front of them. And then also, yes, doing those HR functions like keeping a good work environment, keeping the clubhouse not toxic. And what do I mean? Again, and also when it comes to managing the game in front of them, that means the players are prepared. The manager also has a knack for making correct in-game decisions, or has at least a knack for being a neutral in-game decision maker. Where some decisions are made are going to be bad, some decisions are going to be good, but it's going to be net neutral. That's the floor. You should always be looking for a net neutral manager. The ceiling should be a manager that is almost like a wins above replacement. I think I had that discussion with somebody, either it was via email or via on the YouTube community, and we were talking about that. It's almost like wins above replacement. You want a manager that can help you in the margins, just like how wins above replacement measures that. And you're looking for maybe a 2 or 3 WAR manager at the ceiling. At the floor, just 0. Just don't make so many terrible decisions or be such a bad leader like Pedro Grifol that, you're one of the reasons why the team loses a lot of games. And when it comes to development, it would be an added bonus to have a manager that can help with the development, but I actually really like this idea that the Sox have, like, for example, Brian Bannister just being in charge of the entire pitching development, basically being in charge of the team's pitching for the entire organization. And I would want that when it comes to hitting and fielding, because I think it's very important that from the complex league all the way up to the big league, that everybody is playing the same. That helps with player development. So I would love for them to have a hitting guru and then a fielding guru. Yes, could that set up some dysfunction? Sure. But Getz has a chance to meet a moment and getting rid of the chaos and creating a front office and a coaching staff that works together. So you could have a manager and a coaching staff who's in the support role in development, but their entire focus is getting the team ready to win every night. And how do you get a collaboration from, say, Bannister and a hypothetical head of hitting and fielding? Well, the manager will dictate to them the type of baseball that should be played to win a darn game and instruct that throughout the entire organization. And then those 3 can come back to the manager with a game plan for each individual on how they need to be handled throughout the season to thrive. It should be a culture where ideas are not competing to be the best to win favor with someone. That's what I want to see get out of this organization. Everybody seems to have these ideas because they want, from what we keep hearing in the reports, everybody's competing to be in favor, to gain favor from an owner who thinks it's still 1992. Get that out of there. Ideas should be exchanged and talked about and then implemented in terms of like the best way to get it going to make sure the organization is better and winning games. And, Sizemore might be able to do that, what I've described, but with literally the almost entire potential baseball manager population available in front of you, you can find a better candidate. And that's one reason why I think Sizemore is plan B. And with this huge undertaking of turning things around, you do not want to go with plan B. It demands plan A. And, 670 The Scores baseball beat reporter Bruce Levine, he does report that the Sox are going to be looking at Clayton McCullough. He's 44, a former minor league catcher who was a manager in the Blue Jays minor league system from 2006 to 2014, and he's been with the Dodgers since 2015. And here's a quote that he shared that kind of scares me, and I'll get into why McCullough worries me in just a second, but here's a quote from this is what Levine had. Quote, "I was told not to get my hopes up for the job. An American League coach said about the White Sox opening, they love McCullough, and they think with his background and pedigree, he is the perfect manager to help develop and grow with the young group they are building here," end quote. Okay, so here's what I don't like. McCullough never played in the majors, and you and I saw how that killed Pedro Grifol's credibility. One of the things that gives Sizemore obviously the leg up there is he actually played in the show, and he played well. When Sizemore talks to the players, he's coming from a place of a similar experience. Second, another guy with no big league managing experience, just like Pedro. And I guess Pedro has ruined for me that type of candidate, and I should not let it because, McCullough comes from the Dodgers organization, and you can use more guys from that organization to come in and establish, a culture of this is how winning is done. You do want to bring in a guy that says, this is unacceptable. We need to change this. We need to change this, blah, 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 blah. But what I don't like is when I read that quote, I don't like how it's perceived that the Sox have made up their mind already. And you don't want to go in with biased thinking. The best interview process is one with an open mind where everyone has a shot, and then you use a vetting process to get your candidate. So that's kind of where I have concerns. And Levine did say that Schumacher is most likely not wanting the job from the White Sox. He basically writes what does he write? In the aftermath of Grifol's firing, Marlins manager Skip Schumacher was a hot name tied to the White Sox, as he and the Miami management have already agreed that he won't return to his current role in 2025. But the Reds recently fired manager David Bell, and a few other jobs are likely to open as soon as well. That could change the dynamic for Schumacher, as most believe he's likely to take a more secure position over the White Sox job if he is to be offered a contract. So, right then and there, he doesn't want to have anything to do with the dysfunctional franchise. And again, the White Sox do not win a bidding war. So, again, I don't mind McCullough. And the other thing is he's been a first base coach. You prefer to maybe go with a guy who's been a bench coach or a third base coach, guys who are more involved in the strategy, more involved in getting teams prepared. Although the first base coach usually is kind of like your base running guy, sometimes could be your fielding coach. I just don't want to have biases going into this. And I can just see Getz having his bias and just being like, well, we're going to go with McCullough. And if he says no, well, let's just give it to Sizemore. I don't think it's going to be as deep and detailed because Chris Getz, while he's given me potential and he's shown me flashes, he hasn't really given me that thinking of, hey, this guy can definitely do it. He can get it done, type thing. And the man, this is another moment where I want to see him meet because I do want, I've been very skeptical of Chris Getz, but I do want him to succeed because if he succeeds, it means the White Sox won't be this historically bad. Well, the hope for many following the White Sox historic losing was that they would be defeated last night by the Los Angeles Angels, and history would be made by officially breaking the 1962 New York Mets record for the most losses in a 162-game season. Well, history was made, but not the defeat record one. I'll discuss what was broken or what history was made and why most are disappointed next on Locked On White Sox. This episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival cities during the postseason. Hey, the White Sox and Brewers, they used to be rivals, but obviously the Brewers went over to the National League, and that rivalry died. but they will be playing playoff baseball, and it's just a short drive up I-94 North, and you could book a stay with booking.com, get a ticket to the game, eat abroad at a tailgate, or better yet, stop at Sobelman's, get a Sobelman's burger and their world famous Bloody Marys. Sally's also has great burgers. Milwaukee's more than just burgers, or more than just brats, although I do recommend getting a brat when you're in town. Booking.com can help you book a stay that's close to your home teams, or rival stadium. No matter what team you are rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts to cute bed and breakfast stays, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I always maintain FanDuel is outstanding for props, futures, and parlays. FanDuel is always good for traditional stuff like the over and under and the money line, but the props and futures is where your experience with FanDuel is enhanced, especially with the parlays too. And you can bet what the first scoring play is going to be when the Bears take on the Rams this Sunday. Plus 270 for the Rams scoring first and it being a touchdown. Plus 220 for the Bears in that instance. And if you're confident with the Bears at minus 2.5 and the over at 40.5 points, that parlay is going off at plus 240. Think of that as any chance, some of the stuff that I laid out, that's a chance to double your money if it hits. So that's FanDuel.com. White Sox play game 2 of a 3-game set with the Los Angeles Angels tonight. The first pitch is at 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. As Locked On White Sox is available at such places as Apple and Spotify. And as one of our everydayers pointed out, when I bring this up, I sound like the Hurley He Boy, but please take me in your podcasts. Please subscribe. Please also listen via audio. Just listen to the show via audio too, man. I love that Hurley segment, for the old school Saturday Night Live watchers. As Chris Farley was such a genius. Anyways, first of all, bravo to those who came out last night to guaranteed rate and chanted sell the team. Good work, as that's the best way of forming your displeasure with Jerry Reinsdorf rather than making a sign that security is going to confiscate. Get that chant going. I actually did want to come down last night, and I told my wife, like, hey, it's a chance to see history. And even though I could use the Game Time app, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, she was like, she just gave me that eye, like, why would you go sit in the rain and watch the team make history for losing? And you know what? I wanted to be like, because I talk about it every day and I'd like to see it in person. Anyways, second, history did happen last night, just not the one most of the paying customers came out to see, including the dogs. It was dog night. And I think the White Sox should just have dog night every night. Just that way you can double your attendance. That is because for the first time all season, the White Sox came back and won a game after trailing in the 7th inning. That's right. The Sox came back and won a baseball game late. One of the many reasons on the Declaration of Independence size list of why the White Sox are this bad is the inability to rally back after being down through the first 7 innings. 94 times before last night, the Sox were unsuccessful until last night, when everybody wanted to see them lose, when everybody wanted to see be time number 95, the White Sox come through and they're 1-94 after trailing after 7 innings. And it was the first time I think the Sox faithful actually booed a win. The Athletics' John Greenberg summed it up this way. White Sox fans booing, it happens almost every game on the South Side. White Sox fans chanting sell the team, it's like their version of how you doing. But White Sox fans booing the White Sox for winning a game, well, that's a little unusual, even for this wacky franchise. But that's exactly what happened Tuesday night when the Sox beat the Los Angeles Angels 3-2 in front of 17,606 fans, some national reporters, and a bunch of dogs. At first, fans cheered when the final out was recorded, but when the boos rained down, it was odd, to say the least, but not completely out of the character for the night. After all, many White Sox fans cheered and gave it a standing ovation when the Angels took the lead in the 7th inning. I know because I was sitting among them in Section 108. maybe some of the folks have, maybe someone should have told some of the folks who have recently come back to the club to why, well, that's where he ended. And then what I wanted to say was maybe someone should have told some of the folks who have recently come back to the club to watch this historic losing be completed that the one star of the Sox typically find a way to get a rare win for is Jonathan Cannon. Now, Jonathan Cannon didn't get the official win, but he was brilliant through 6 innings of work as he kept the Angels off the board and mostly off the bases as he allowed just 3 hits, a walk, and struck out 7. Gus Farland and Prelander Baroa, who have shown some flashes that they could be viable bullpen arms next season. They gave up runs in the 7th and the 8th to set up that potential history, to set up loss 121 for the White Sox to at least have the record for the most losses in a 162-game season. But then the Sox rallied back, and maybe for some of the hardcore faithful, the boos maybe subconsciously came because how the Sox actually pulled off the comeback win. So Brian Ramos, he hits a pinch hit RBI to score Zach DeLoach. Brian Ramos hit a pinch hit RBI single. That should not be pinch hit RBI single. It should have just been his regular at bat because he should be playing every day. He should be playing every day the rest of the season, whether it be a third or DH. But he had to pinch hit to drive in a run because, Nicky Lopez, Andrew Vaughn, they still need their at-bats for some reason. And DeLoach should also be getting a long look. Instead, he's being platooned with Dominic Fletcher on right because, Andrew Benintendi, he still needs those at-bats this season. Anyways, Luis Robert Jr. looked like he was going to end the inning on a 2-out pop-out when Angels second baseman Jack Lopez, he just lost track of the ball. I don't know if he lost track of the ball in the lights. I don't know what happened, but he just lost track of the ball, and it dropped for an infield RBI single. Luck actually went the Sox way. Luck never has gone this White Sox way this season. If it did, the Pythagorean win-loss record would have the Sox at least with 44 wins because that's what their Pythagorean win-loss record should have. And again, one of the reasons on this declaration size list of why the White Sox are at 120 losses is they just don't have luck on their side. Okay, and I just said Benintendi should not be getting at bats for the rest of the season, but only because he's just a replacement level veteran. And you and I know what he can do. I just want to see what Zach DeLoach can do. But Benny at least drove in the game-winning run in the next at-bat. And then somehow Justin Anderson did not blow the save. He always blows leads. That's the other thing. The Sox blow leads. So think about it. They won a game where a guy who should be playing every day hits a pinch hit RBI single to score the first run. They won a game because luck actually went their way. And they win a game because a veteran who probably shouldn't be playing as much the rest of the season hit a single. And they win a game because Justin Anderson did not blow a lead. I would have booed that too because of the losing history being avoided, but because where the heck has that been all season? That's why I would have booed it. Where was this? It finally showed up in the last week of the season. The luck comes back finally when, most people don't want the White Sox to win. That's when it shows up. And even Mother Nature was trying to give us a break. The game started under a rain delay. I'm surprised it even started. Give the White Sox credit for playing the game, but man, it seemed like the one time that you wanted fate to go against the White Sox, where it's been going against the Sox the entire season, came through. Where was that all year? Anyways, it's Wednesday, and I love to do those retro segments. So let's remember that time the Sox beat the Angels in the 2005 ALCS on the way toward winning the World Series next on Locked On White Sox. The NFL is in full swing. The NHL and NBA's regular season will be starting soon, and there's nothing like catching those games live. And the best places to find tickets to sports, concerts, comedy shows, and the theater is on the Game Time app. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Pick filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And always be on the lookout for those Game Time Pick deals, like when they had a 50% off tickets to the Dodgers and Diamondbacks on Labor Day. They had that deal. They can always have different types of deals coming up, so always be on the lookout for that. And they have that great panoramic view seating view in the app so you can see what your view would look like before you purchase. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? Game time. And the White Sox play game 2 of a 3-game set with the Los Angeles Angels tonight. The first pitch is at 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Lockdown White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Shout out to all my everydayers. I did say yesterday that I would probably talk about, the comments that you guys sent in the community. I know I've gotten some emails from you about this historic losing, but they didn't lose. And the manager search came up, and I figured that's more, we need to get information out. I want to get information out to you about the Sox manager search. And then also just, the team got booed for winning. Think about how bad the season has been, that when they win, people aren't happy now. But again, where was it? Where was this luck the entire year? Speaking of fate and good fortune, that was one of the things that shined upon the White Sox in 2005, especially against the Los Angeles Angels in the ALCS. And you know why the AJ Pierzynski no-K was so great? Because it showed that for the first time in that series, that fate was on the Sox side. The first clue was obviously Orlando El Duque Hernandez pitching out of that bases loaded jam in the ALDS with Boston. That was that first time that it's like, hey, man, fate's on the White Sox side here. But AJ taking first on that drop third strike that the ump really did not indicate. And Josh Paul, even if he didn't indicate, Josh Paul, a former White Sox catcher too, not throwing to first like any catcher would if there was even a possible hint of a drop third strike, showed that the Sox were going to be okay, especially after dropping game 1 and struggling to score in game 2. But what will also be memorable about the Sox winning that series 4-1 is also there's no way a team will ever win a series in that fashion ever again. I'm going to be bold and say that will never happen again. You will not see 4 straight complete games from starters in the postseason ever again. The simple reason is the leverage analytics dictate that you might want to make a different pitching decision. And then 2, hindsight being 2020, and don't get me wrong, I will take the World Series win in 2005, but the long-term ramifications show you could probably go with a bullpen arm to say wrap up a 8-2 win, as you and I saw, because in the next season, the starters just ran out of gas. I mean, that was one of the reasons why the Sox only won 90 games, but that's why it allowed the Tigers and the Twins to jump ahead of them in the standings, because those starters were just gassed. I mean, and I think Mark Burley went and pitched in that pitching showcase in Japan. I mean, it just, there was a lot of extra innings logged by those starters. And again, I appreciate what Jose Contreras, Mark Burley, Freddie Garcia, and John Garland did in that series. I'm just saying someone in today's front office would be running down to make sure a pitching change was made at some point in some of those series. Or again, the leverage would say, hey, we got to go with this guy, the matchups, all that data that, is available to everybody. And thankfully, Ozzie Guillen and Kenny Williams were not that type of manager front office relationship where somebody's going to run down and say, Ozzie, you got to pull John Garland out of this thing. And that is a huge reason why 88 years of misery eventually ended. And also with replay now, there's a 50-50 shot that the dropped third strike may get overturned. So who knows if the Sox win in extra innings, but that AJ no-K and then Joe Cree's walk-off hit certainly changed the tide of that series. And with the randomness of October baseball, you need fate on your side to win a series. I mean, think about it. One bad week where you struggle to score runs, your season's over. Because the randomness, one of the things that people forget about the randomness that is interjected into October, or Captain Variance, as 1670 the Score host loves to say, is they're just limited tomorrows to get right. You don't have like a next series, or you don't have, you only get a certain amount of games. That's it. So if you're not hitting well, or your bullpen is just a mess, you can't just, get it right and, go on to win games to win like a division. You got to be right. You got to be hitting right. And yes, you do need some luck to go your way to win in such a randomness that is the October playoffs. Why do you think the Dodgers typically don't win the World Series every year? It's usually because fate doesn't wipe out the randomness for them. That's the other thing. A lot of those, the bounces going your way wipes out randomness. And also, fate, as you know, is random. I know I contradicted myself, and isn't it ironic, don't you think? So next season, when you and I are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the 2005 World Series, just remember the Sox won a playoff series in a manner that will never happen again. All right, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it covered every single day. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back tomorrow with Southside.com's editor, Brett Valentini. We're going to discuss the historical significance of this terrible season, as he's been doing a great job of tracking all that, making sure like, hey, what's the magic number for the Sox to officially break the 1916 Philadelphia A's worst winning percentage of all time. Also, feel free to then leave comments about today's topics about Grady Sizemore getting consideration to be the team's manager long-term. The Sox winning a game that made some season history, but not the type that you wanted to see. And the way back Wednesday appreciation for the 2005 ALCS win. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X formerly Twitter at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.